Hey everyone, ready to dive into something kind of mind-blowing.
I like where this is going.
We're talking Bitcoin and what it could mean for, financial freedom.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Big one, right. So we got this article, and honestly, even I was like, whoa, at some points.
That's a lot to take in, that's for sure. Even for someone like me who, deals with this stuff all the time.
Totally. So forget the hype, forget the jargon. We're going straight to the core of how Bitcoin could, reshape how you think about money, right?
Exactly. And that's a good thing you're curious about this because,
Right.
honestly, this isn't just about some new, currency. It's a fundamental shift. Like how we think about, financial systems, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
The article even mentions, even seasoned financial experts, they hit a wall trying to wrap their heads around it at first.
Right. It's like learning a whole new language almost.
It is. It is.
So let's break this whole internet protocol for money thing down. What does that even mean?
Okay, so imagine if the internet, right, instead of just sharing cat videos and,
Important stuff.
important stuff, exactly, could securely and directly transfer value.
Oh, okay.
That's essentially what Bitcoin aims to do. Instead of relying on, banks or governments to be the middleman,
Right.
Bitcoin, it operates on a decentralized network. Think of it like a digital ledger that's spread across, countless computers all over the world.
Okay.
No single point of failure, no one entity calling the shots.
Okay, so I'm starting to see why that's such a big deal. No more worrying about a bank going under or
Yeah.
like you said, a government manipulating the
Right.
or currency exactly. But how does this translate into actual financial freedom for everyday people? I mean, I'm no tech whiz over here,
Right.
but I am interested in taking more control of my financial future, you know what I mean?
And that's exactly the point. You don't need to be a tech genius to, to benefit from the potential here. And the article, it features this, right. And that's where this person's journey gets really interesting, right?
Yeah.
They dove deeper into this world of Bitcoin maximalists.
Mm-hmm.
And no, this isn't some crazy cult, although,
Right.
they might be a tad passionate about their Bitcoin.
Yeah, I've heard.
But these are folks who firmly believe in Bitcoin's unique advantages over any other cryptocurrency.
Okay. So instead of spreading themselves thin across all those other cryptocurrencies, they went all in on Bitcoin.
Yeah, they kind of went all in. And you know what? What they realized was a lot of those other cryptocurrencies, they lacked those key features.
Yeah.
That made Bitcoin so compelling, especially when you're talking about true financial freedom.
Okay.
For example, a lot of cryptocurrencies, they're still heavily influenced by these centralized entities. And it's like,
Which
well,
defeats the purpose.
it defeats the whole purpose.
Right.
The article talks about how they were, really drawn to this self-custody aspect of Bitcoin. It's you have full control, right?
Yeah.
Unlike your bank account, which, let's be honest, can be frozen, funds can be seized, with Bitcoin, you hold the keys, so to speak.
Right.
No one can take that away from you, which is a really powerful concept when you think about it.
Yeah.
Especially for people living in places maybe with unstable political climates or just unreliable financial institutions in general.
Wow. Yeah, that's a whole other level of control, and security, I'd imagine,
Right.
Imagine that peace of mind that comes with knowing no one can just arbitrarily cut off your access to your own money. That's pretty wild. But okay, let's back up for a second. You mentioned keys. What does self-custody actually look like in practice?
Okay, so
Is it as complicated as it sounds?
it's definitely a learning curve, I'm not going to lie. But, it's getting easier all the time.
Okay.
Think of it like having a digital vault,
Okay. Yeah.
For your Bitcoin,
Right.
you get to be your own bank,
Yeah.
which, can be empowering,
For sure.
but also a little daunting at first, for sure.
Yeah.
The article doesn't get into all the nitty-gritty technical details, but luckily there's a ton of resources out there, that can help people learn how to securely store and manage their own Bitcoin.
Right. So it's like anything else, you learn the ropes as you go.
Exactly.
It reminds me of how intimidating online banking felt at first, and now I can't imagine life without it.
Totally.
But going back to what you were saying about Bitcoin's global impact, this idea of financial inclusion really stood out to me.
Right. And this is where Bitcoin's potential goes way beyond, just personal investing.
Right.
We're talking about potentially revolutionizing access to financial services for millions, even billions of people, honestly, around the world.
Wow.
Like, the article gave this, like, really powerful example of how Bitcoin is being used by, like, activists and journalists in countries where freedom of the press is, restricted.
Right.
And they can receive funding directly from supporters,
Right.
even if their government, tries to block more traditional channels.
That's amazing. So even if their bank accounts are frozen, they can still receive that support and continue their work. It's like this digital lifeline. It's incredible.
That is.
Bypasses censorship and empowers people in ways we might not even fully grasp yet. I mean, it's really something.
It's mind-blowing when you think about it. In the article, it took this really interesting turn when it, like, drew this parallel between Bitcoin and religion.
Okay, now you've got my full attention. This sounds like we're about to get philosophical.
And get ready. The article argues that both systems, in a way, provide this framework for, like, social coordination and trust. But, in very different ways.
Bitcoin and religion being similar. Okay, I'm hooked. I've got to know how they connected those two.
Well, think about it like this.
Yeah.
Religions often, like, lay down these ground rules, right?
Yeah.
A set of shared beliefs, values, rules, that kind of thing.
Right, right.
They act as this kind of, like, social contract, right?
Right.
Guiding how people, act and interact with each other.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see where this is going. So is Bitcoin like that too? A sort of social contract, but for, like, money and value.
Exactly. Bitcoin, with its whole decentralized structure and, these set-in-stone rules, it's like coded into its very DNA.
Right.
It establishes this framework for how we exchange and store value. It's about trusting the system itself, the cryptography, the blockchain, rather than putting, like, blind faith in these institutions that, let's be honest, can be prone to,
Corruption, human error, all that.
all of that, exactly.
That's a really interesting point. But if we're really drawing these parallels here, isn't there a fundamental difference too? Like, religious texts and interpretations, they can evolve, right?
Right.
Rules get debated, things change over time. Bitcoin, on the other hand, feels very, I don't know, rigid, unyielding.
He hit the nail on the head. In the article, it calls this difference Bitcoin's engineered truth.
Okay.
Unlike those religious texts or societal norms that are, open to interpretation and, let's be honest, sometimes manipulation.
Right. Yeah.
Bitcoin's code, it's immutable. When something is on that blockchain, it is set in digital stone, my friend. Permanent, transparent for everyone to see.
It's like you said earlier, no single entity can just come in and change the rules whenever they want, which unfortunately happens all too often in the traditional financial world.
It's a really powerful concept, this engineered truth, especially in a world where, we're grappling with misinformation and this lack of transparency everywhere you look.
Yeah.
And it really gets at, like, the core of why Bitcoin has captured so many people's imaginations, right?
Yeah.
It offers this, like, refreshing alternative in a system that honestly often feels rigged against the average person.
So to bring it all back, what's the key takeaway for someone listening to this deep dive? Beyond the, like, technical stuff, the philosophical parallels, what does it all really mean?
The article ends on this, like, note of cautious optimism, right? Acknowledging that we're still in the early stages of, like, Bitcoin's journey.
Yeah.
But that potential impact on, individual and global financial freedom, it's undeniable. It makes you kind of step back and ask yourself, like, what happens when people all over the world have access to a financial system that's open, transparent, resistant to censorship? Like, really think about that.
It's definitely something worth paying attention to, even if, if someone isn't ready to, like, buy Bitcoin this very second.
Absolutely. And this whole deep dive was about, like, expanding our understanding of what's possible, nudging us to think a little differently about the future of money and whether you're, looking for more control over your own finances, seeking out alternatives to the traditional systems, or just, intrigued by Bitcoin and what it represents. One thing's for sure. This conversation is far from over.
It really makes you think. And for those who are ready to, go down that rabbit hole, there's a whole universe of information out there, which, let's be real, is what these deep dives are all about.
Couldn't said it better myself. And here's a final thought from me, something the article didn't explicitly touch on. But, if Bitcoin can reimagine money, challenge the status quo of finance like this, what other aspects of our lives might it disrupt or transform down the line? Right? It's an open question, but the possibilities are, incredibly exciting.
That's a powerful question to leave us with. It feels like we only just scratched the surface. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Bitcoin and financial freedom. It's been enlightening, to say the
The
least.
pleasure was all mine. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep that curiosity burning bright.